Hello and welcome back to Active Breath, the mVm Miller Voice Method podcast. My name is Kyle Cameron. I'm one of your co-hosts, certified Miller Voice Method teacher and director of the mVm Academy. I am here with my illustrious co-host and founder of the program, whose name is
Scott Miller.
How are you, Scott?
I'm pretty good. I just came from jury duty. I didn't really get picked, but I've been called for district court, which means I'm on the hook for 2 weeks. So I was happy to get out and be able to do this today.
Does not getting picked trigger you into any of your athletic sports background, or were you always picked in sports?
No, anyway. Today, no. I actually was on a jury once. I had a funny story about that, but maybe for another time. Yeah.
That's fair. Meanwhile, why don't I introduce our illustrious guest for today? He goes by many names, and he has many titles. I call him JP. Sometimes he is called John Patrick. He is one of the early collaborators with Scott on this method and the studio that was built to sort of put it out into the world. Ladies and gentlemen, John Patrick.
Oh, hi. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. And to be clear, I was very triggered by Scott's comment about not getting tricked or picked, rather, from my sports history. So we can talk about that if you'd like.
Absolutely. But again, for later, we'll pin that for it'll be dessert after the main course. JP, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What are some of the various titles that you hold in this world?
I am. This is great. Such a great question. So I am co-founder. I am co-founder of Miller Voice Method Studio and certified Miller Voice Method teacher. I am a facilitator for Duarte, which does communication design, and I am a gender-affirming vocal coach for Chicago Women's Health Center. I'm a father and partner, and I'm a bit of maybe a wannabe entrepreneur as I work on business ideas and trying to get things out into the world. I think that covers it for the most part.
That's a lot. You do a lot in this world.
Well, don't we all?
So how long have you two been working together? When did you two start this relationship?
Scott was my substitute speech teacher because my speech teacher was on a sabbatical in graduate school at Rutgers University. So this was 2002, if I'm not mistaken. 2002. And Scott came in, covered her class, the great Pat Fletcher. And Scott came in, and I was a huge fan of Pat Fletcher. One of the reasons why I went to Rutgers. She's this incredible speech teacher and wonderful human being. And I was very mad that Scott came in to cover her classes, especially back then, right when Google was finally coming online as being a thing. I went online and looked up Scott Miller, and you know what I found? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. I was like, who is this guy and how dare he come and teach this class? Well, the rest is history.
How, Scott, if you were nothing at that point, how did you end up teaching that class?
Relationships, like most jobs come about. You know, I had studied with Shane-Ann Yance, who still teaches at NYU grad with me, and for 2 years in her studio or at her studio, and then she had me study with her mentor, Robert Neff Williams, who he's passed since, but he was this chair. You know, he used to be the chair at Juilliard in their voice department, and this amazing artist. And so I studied with him for a year. And after you study with those people, they're usually asked, you know, do you know anybody that would be good for this job? And
right.
And I had studied with them specifically to teach what they were teaching or to teach voice and speech. So they had recommended me for a job, and And Rutgers was, well, I'd done some undergraduate work at NYU, taught in their undergrad department, but that was just substituting in. And it's funny, JP, I have a different memory about that first job at Rutgers, which was, I think she retired because I ended up teaching there for 2 years. And but that was really the place where, I came in and was teaching a speech class, but started to introduce a lot of voice. And at the time I was single, I had no responsibilities in my life. And I was assigned to coach one show a year. I think I coached about 6 because I just wanted more and more knowledge. And the faculty hated me. Because who wants some guy, this young, ambitious, ambitious in the sense of knowledge, guy that comes in and teaches coaches 6 shows when he's supposed to coach 1, et cetera, et cetera. So
throwing his weight around.
Yeah, well, I just wanted more and more experience. So I basically lived there for 2 years, and JP was in that first class. Yeah. And
wow. You made yourself incredibly available to us in a way that we were so hungry for, I think, the kind of attention you were giving us, and the writings, the letters that you would write back to us in responses to our work was so thorough and thoughtful and insightful. I think we were all equally as hungry, and I think that's rare because which I think is totally natural and of course okay, as teachers get extended into their careers, they just have a different availability and a different vibe to them. So you actually matched our hunger, which is rare in that environment. So I attribute a big part of that to that hunger.
Yeah, and that was really the beginnings of the laboratory. It started to play around with a lot of different exercises and seeing how they impacted and JP was, very early on was looking to, basically, we didn't have a quote unquote official TAs, but he became my TA unofficially, and so set up this kind of routine where would identify some people that would need some extra help, and the JP would work with them because he can speak obviously more to this, but he had quite a vast voice and speech background even before he came to grad school. So it was great.
You want to tell us a bit about that, JP? I'd be curious to hear where your foundations lie.
Sure. So with certain things in life I have no interest in, I'll phone it in any chance you give me. Then there's the things in life that I continue to be somewhat voracious about, depending on the day. Because I'm human, but I must say that like an undergrad, the voice and speech thing, like the way the voice worked and vocal expression and all of its nuances and great mentors in that field always drew me in. So I had an undergraduate teacher, Margaret Loft. She went by Peggy. And if I'm not mistaken, she was the original founders of the Juilliard School and early protege of Kristen Linklater, but she was teaching at SMU at Dallas, and I went to school at TCU down in Texas, about 30 minutes west of SMU, and she was also teaching there. And I did a little research and found out about her background. I was like, oh my gosh, what's this person doing in Texas, let alone that Dallas-Fort Worth area? And she's teaching at this program I went to. I was like, I want to take advantage of this time and just absolutely go after her for every bit of information, knowledge, and wisdom that she'd be willing to share. And at the time, she was older. And maybe late 60s, early 70s, early 70s at that time. And this was 1998. And I loved her. Like I loved everything about her passion for voice and speech. Her, there was a gravitas about her in the way that she taught. There was a power. There was a deep soul, a deep love, but also she commanded the room. Like we walked in the room, like you respected her. You did what you're supposed to do. There was definitely this kind of old school way in which she ran the room. And coming from the background I came from, I responded well to that. I was like, yes, tell me what to do. I'll do that ×2 and please the teacher. It's like, oh yes, I love this style. So that then led to, she approached me and thought, hey, I see the way that you're working. I see the letters that you're writing me. It's clear that you have a passion for this work. We should, I'm happy to mentor you additionally outside of class. And
she approached you?
Well, I made it clear in my, again, I was writing her messages about my great interest in voice and speech work. So I was putting
Hinting,
out all
hedging.
the breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
My God. Oh, yes. She was coerced, let's be clear. But what was so great and beautiful and tempestuous as far as this setup, she would have me come out to her house all throughout the summer. And for lessons and additional mentorship, we'd write letters back and forth in phonetics all summer long. She would
in phonetics?
Ask that in phonetics. And
then is so nerdy.
Oh my God.
I love it.
Amazing.
I knew. See, we're going to get into these things.
I didn't know this.
It's going to expose me.
I didn't know this at all. This is amazing.
And I feel like we should be clear, just in case any of our listeners are not aware, there is a full other alphabet that you are talking about, the International Phonetic Alphabet. You're not talking about spelling words out using, Latin characters to address the phonetic sounds. This is actually like a different alphabet that you're writing letters in.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of like Trekkies who learn Klingon and then write letters to each other in Klingon. It's the voice and
runic
speech
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely the parallel to that, for sure. But for payment for all of that beautiful time that she gave me, I would go out and help her garden. So I would move all the heavy rocks and stones and bricks, hence the Tempest reference. And for that, she would give me her time. Yeah,
that's adorable.
Thing.
It feels like a relationship from another time, like I do want to get into the fundamentals of mVm and where you two sort of built your relationship, but I hear an interesting comparison to be drawn here between the way relationships between student and teacher worked then versus now. I think that's sort of fascinating. And also one of the fundamental things that we teach our teachers in the certification program is about eradication of status, and the idea that the teacher is not better than you, or that I as the teacher don't, I'm not necessarily the expert. You will have things to teach me as well. And so this idea that you're talking about her commanding the room and you responding really well to that, I'm curious how that jives with or leads to the sort of mVm philosophy about removing that status.
Yeah, and Scott said this thing to me early on in our days that's always stuck with me, which is, judgment is the death of curiosity.
Yeah.
And those teachers that were of a different time and a different era, we love now in our current generation to judge them for that kind of prescriptive model, more authoritative classrooms, all the things, dangling the carrots for the students. And we love to judge it because we were trying to evolve from it for sure. And yet there's a reason why it existed and some of those models get certain results. And she was a perfect example of she was incredibly powerful and of a different era. And that, I think, did segue me to, she gave me such information, such knowledge I'm forever grateful for. But that was a great segue to then when I met Scott taught in a vastly different way than Peggy. And that piqued my interest. I was like, oh, what's this? This feels very different. And I was voracious still for that knowledge and wisdom from any teacher that would have me. And I quickly, like I did with Peggy, I quickly pegged Scott as, oh, this guy's after something like I'm after something. Like he's deeply curious and a bit of a rule breaker and doesn't want to just status quo it. Like I was very attracted to that for lots of reasons, but I think I was vibing on that kindred spirit. So that definitely led me to speaking more and more with Scott.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think authority can get a bad rap, or it can be used in a way that that is kind of binary, right? I mean, I think of authority as like legitimate authority or illegitimate authority. To speak in a binary way, right? Meaning, and how that relates to status. So, there's what I would call legitimate authority, which is like you've studied, you have history, you've worked, you've built up experience, and then authority just takes on a role, right? Which is very important in the construct of a society, that I can depend on your authority, that you're a plumber and you've done this for 30 years and you know the ins and outs and all this, the machinations. And that's a kind of authority that is very important in the construct of a society.
Yeah, useful.
Right? And now when that knowledge is taken and then used and abused in different ways outside of its, the specific purpose, that's something completely different. That has nothing to do with authority. That has to do with an abuse of fill in the blank, whatever it is, frankly. Illegitimate authority, I think, is I have no experience, I have no knowledge. I'm just going to show up and take on the persona of an authoritarian or an authoritative energy, which actually has no backing or backbone to it. And that's very dangerous, I think, in the construct of a society, because you want to lean on authority. Actually, you want that to be kind of your safety net. And when it becomes kind of like a paper lion, and there's no safety net, and it's easily punctured through, that is very harmful for a society, I think. So, which is different than status, right? Status, I think, is, in the way that at least I think of it, is more on the abuse of power, in the sense of, I have this authority, therefore I have the right to do things that are outside my authority, frankly. Right. and I need you to see me in ways that really have nothing to do with my stated purpose and the backing of my authority. So that's how I kind of parse the difference between the two. And I think
I feel like in this.
I was just going to say, Robert F. Williams is a good example. It sounds much like JP's Peggy was. He came in with a suit and tie every single class. But that man had authority. I mean, he would say to us, "Oh, so, what did you do for the week?" And I don't know, maybe one of us went to a play or a movie or was reading a book. And then we would go, Mr. And he would call us by Mr. and Mrs. or Miss, whatever, our last names. And we would say, Mr. So what did you do, Mr. Williams? And he was like, okay, so on Monday I went to see the car show. On Tuesday I went to the opera. Wednesday I went to see this little avant-garde theater thing. And this guy, at that time, he was like 82 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then on Thursday, I stayed in and read, some fancy book that he talked about. And, it was like, that's authority, right? Because this guy's going out and doing the work, and we leaned on him and we leaned on his knowledge. And it was I'm getting chills just talking about it right now. That was a fantastic thing to have in the classroom, so.
Yeah, a resource rather than a posture or a role.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah. Very cool. So listen, how did we get, like, I'm curious about the sort of genesis of the laboratory. What were some of how did those conversations go? What were some of the first exercises? I know Tom or Scott has talked about his studying with Uta Hagen and Robert Neff Williams and all these folks. When did it start to shift into Miller voice, and did that sort of dovetail with your relationship?
I mean, I could tell the beginning parts of this, but JP, you fill in the rest. I mean, I taught at Rutgers for 2 years. That second year overlapped with me starting to teach at NYU grad acting, which was a much more hospitable, let me say, environment for experimentation. And, one of my first faculty meetings there, Zelda Fitch-Handler said, welcome all my acting teachers to all of us, the entire faculty, which, at the time, like we spoke about before, in a very siloed environment, that was very cutting edge. Certainly, I wasn't experiencing that anywhere else I had been. So, I'd done a lot of experimenting at Rutgers in classrooms as such, and then started to experiment a lot more at NYU. And JP graduated. I just had him for that 1 year, and then he graduated the 2 years later. Then I think it was the second year I had you, and then the third year I didn't. And then and we stayed in touch, along the way. But JP moved back to Kansas City. Correct me if I'm wrong. And he was up for this really nice job. And he was also, there was a couple other things that he'll talk about going on, but it was I'll leave it with this. It was the end of one of our at the end of its I think 2006 school year, and someone was going to be absent or something for the next semester, and Zelda said to all of us, well, it's I think it's very wise for you all to have like someone else that you could rely on if someone gets sick, et cetera, et cetera. And that put that in, that idea in my brain to start this kind of shadowing program and asking people to come and shadow me. And I had asked Zelda if that was okay, if I could have someone come in. And she said, yeah, by all means, of course. That's all. I'll leave it at that, JP. You can take over from there.
So if you remember, I mentioned this, this coercion of Peggy at TCU where, she would mentor me. Scott and I have slightly different takes on the origination of this mentorship. And in general, Scott, that was right. But this is where he's wrong, is that at Rutgers is where officially the mentor-mentee thing began, because Scott was the one that approached me. I even remember the moment and the place in the theater where it happened, where Scott approached me and goes, hey, we're vibing. He did not use that word. I inserted that word into the straight. Right?
Definitely would not use that word.
So with some liberty I will take to tell a good story. Scott approached me and goes, hey, would you like officially to be, my mentee? In my language, I would say Padawan learner. I was like, 100%, I was 100% going to approach you like next week about it. I was going to officially like write the email or, have the meeting with you. Yes, yes, yes. So I began to, even at that point, assist on some private sessions there at Rutgers, some little small group things that we're doing, starting to think of him in that capacity of like, I want to teach like this guy teaches. I want to learn more from him. And then after that, oh gosh, you just keep asking follow-up questions, Kyle, as far as if you want to know more, but I'll skim through this, which is my class was showcasing at Rutgers in LA. And it was a great showcase. It went well. And I thought, oh my gosh, maybe LA is going to be my place. And at that same time, we had multiple showcase performances. Before one of them, I got a phone call from my dad. And my mom had been battling breast cancer for about 5 years off and on. And he called me and said, hey, and I picked up, like we were just about to circle together before we went on to our like second showcase performance. God. I was like, it's my dad. I better pick up. And I don't exaggerate when I say we were about to circle up and hold hands and do like the good luck everybody thing. Yeah. I pick up and he goes, hey, I felt like I had to call you and let you know they've decided to take your mom off all the experimental medications. Oh my God. It's time to start walking her through the end, and you better get home because we don't know how long she has. Mm-hmm. So I, of course, shared that with my classmates. And we held hands. And they were so incredible because, grad school is such a love-hate between your classmates a lot of times. And it was for our group.
Siblings.
I was annoying as hell. I was so naive and earnest. I was so annoying and always, anyway. So to have them support me in that moment and beyond, I'll be forever grateful to my classmates for that. So we did our thing. And because of that, I had to kind of give up that whole momentum and trajectory and just move back. And I was in my parents' basement with my wife, Erin, like the next week. And no job and just being there available to my mom as, she, very much that, walked through death, which I'm, again, forever grateful for, to be there for that.
Yeah.
So, that was a bizarre thing to have happen in that way. And then as stranger things happen, I'm in Kansas City selling cars. Yes.
Okay.
And
that's fantastic.
I'm selling cars to make money after my mom died because we're like, what are you going to do? I'm desperate for cash. So of course I sell cars. And I'm like, I have an MFA and I'm selling cars. This is classic.
Yeah, right.
And I get a phone call from Blue Man Group and the casting director there. Yeah.
Really?
I know. It's bizarre. I auditioned for Blue Man Group before I went to grad school. So this was 3.5 years before. And they saw me and they liked me. I played music. I was a guitarist and a drummer and played in a rock band for a long, long time. So they're like, ooh, here's this actor who's also a musician. Maybe he could be a good fit. So they brought me in for a bunch of auditions before grad school. And they said, you know what? Why don't you go to grad school? Off you go. And we'll keep track of you and we'll circle back around and call you after grad school. But we think you need some development, need some age. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. Like they'll ever call me.
Whatever.
And they did.
That is crazy.
Crazy. So he called me and goes, guess what? I've had your headshot on my office for 3 years, he said. Great guy. So, Tim Miller is his name. He goes, I've had your headshot on my thing for 3 years. And we want to fly you to New York City to go through the Blue Man Group audition process. So I did. I did that. So now we're about a year past my mom's death and after grad school showcasing. And I flew to New York. I trained with them. There's probably 20 of us to begin, I guess, to start that process of auditioning for them in person. And then that whittled down to 10. And that whittled down to 5, and then it whittled down to 3.
Drum roll, please.
And then they cut the other 2 guys, and I was the last one remaining. And I went into the cast for a month in New York City performing with them. And during this, I was able to sneak away for a couple days because keep tracking. So I had to fly back to Kansas City for my dad's wedding. And I'll never forget going to my mom's tombstone and like just breaking down because I realized like, oh my God, Mom, like you've always been my biggest fan and you've always championed me. And I'm so grateful for you. I did it. I made it.
Yeah.
I'm a working actor
in New York. Yeah.
New York, working and being put up in the Greenwich Village by Blue Man Group. I get back and 1 week later, they let me go.
After all of that.
So
that's the life, folks.
That
is how this works.
Life. They had just opened their new cast in Canada, in Toronto, and I got panned. And they decided that the way that the recent trainings of the Blue Men had been evolving at that point, that something was off and they're starting to lose grip on the company. So they wanted to clean slate it. So they took anyone who they just recently trained and wanted to let them go and start over how they're training Blue Men. And that person was me. So
yikes.
Yeah, it was brutal. And that, of course, brutal and beautiful and perfect, because then I moved to England with the severance money they gave me, which was very generous. I moved to England so my wife could do her grad work abroad. And and then came back to Kansas City after that briefly for a place to do a touchstone moment. And it was in that moment where, I had a fork in the road, which was to either be the artistic director of a youth theater in Kansas City. I got a job offer to be that, and I said yes. And then a couple of days later, Scott calls me and was like, well, you could do that, or you could come shadow me at NYU and be my first official mentee in this new mentee program here. And we can do what we've always dreamed of, which is to start this company together and go about the business of expanding the Miller Voice Method world. And I go, I'll choose that.
Wow. That is fascinating.
That part I remember.
Thank you for telling that incredible story about Blue Man Group. I had no idea. I can see you so clearly. I'm going to need footage or photos or something from that time. I need to see the whole thing. I need something. It's too good.
I've got it.
So just to bring it back to active breath and the sort of the work of it all, what were some of the early discoveries that you all were making in that laboratory period at NYU?
A lot of it was around integration. A lot of it was around this sense of teaching my responsibilities as a voice teacher and doing that, but also that's when the duress thing started becoming really clear to me, that we were having great results in the classroom, but the minute they went into performance, acting became the only important thing they were focusing on, the students. And a lot of the work that we had done in the classroom just dropped away. So then, remembering from sports training that you really need to train with the elements that will show up in performance into your memory. Otherwise, once those things show up, it's going to require a lot of attention to survive them, which will take away from the task at hand. So that's when we started changing a lot of the exercises to start to encourage a lot more duress. I don't know. I remember, JP, that exercise where two different lines of people. They're doing different things at each other. Basically anything to really mess with people's focus, to see if they could, get a little bit more trained on really staying on task. And playing with a lot of, really the benefit of having JP there and at that point was, up until that, I was, it was me and the students. And I would try to, engage with the students as much as possible to try to get some feedback as to how the exercises were going. But once JP came along, then it was really kind of a peer to have these in-depth conversations about pedagogy and JP's vast experience as well with other pedagogies. That really started to create many more exercises and many more progressions, maybe even within a specific exercise, of how we could keep advancing these exercises to make them more difficult and more difficult. So that was huge. And then after the 2 years had finished, we had thought about starting this studio, right? Getting this work out into the world. And JP and another guy named Liam Joint, who was also a student in the MFA program, a year younger than JP, I had met there, lost touch with for a little while. And then JP and I got back in touch with him. And they basically said, you need to do something with this, beyond just New York, local. This is something different. This is something different than what's out there presently. And I do think it's the integrative element is really the thing that differentiates a lot of it. But I remember that day when they came to me and said that, and I remember just sighing a big sigh, because I think, somewhere I felt like, oh yeah, that would be great. But I knew how much work that would take, my God. And that's what the sigh was about. And I said to them, and there was another individual named Rita involved in those very early meetings for about 6 months. And I said to the three of them, I said, okay, if you can guarantee that we meet once a week for the next 6 months to just kind of brainstorm, I'm on board. and we did, that, and then what do we call this thing? And then it was decided we would call it Miller something. I guess in the end, Miller Voice Method, and which a bit to my chagrin, because I knew how much crap I would get from my faculty at NYU.
Let me chime in about that. Let me chime in,
please.
I was the one that pushed. Really, I didn't push, I would say, but I was like, look, this is the deal. Like, to use your name, people. There's many other works where that's consistent with it, and Scott was always bucking at that. And because we want to get away from a guru model,
right?
It's all about this one person. We wanted to make this as co-op-y as possible, and getting rid of the person's name and the title of the work was a good way to do that. And we were on board with that, but there was some kind of familiarity and a place to get started and to tell the truth. Like it was it was truthful to say that this was the child of Scott's creativity to start. So I didn't mind that, and I thought it would add more credibility and visibility to have it in that way. But Scott never wanted that at the beginning, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and you're also entering a pantheon of methodologies that are all named after their founder. The Linklater, the Fitzmaurice, all those. Chuck Jones, right?
Yeah.
That there's an extant tradition there.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And that's really where a lot of it began. I mean, as far as you really organized exercises, and then eventually the memorialization of those exercises into this, vast manual that we now have. But all the time, this is around 2010, I think, all the time, from then till now, and it continues, we're attempting to evolve the exercises. Really, JP had this wonderful career at UNC, at Chapel Hill in the MFA program, teaching there and being the head of the voice department and getting tenure. And so that became a great avenue too to try out. And he was like a one-man. JP, you can talk about it, but essentially a one-man show down there in his department. So got a chance to do all these exercises, build on all these exercises, try out new stuff, try out a lot of on-camera stuff. And so, it started to really grow through that kind of constant communication with each other and trial and error,
In workshopping these exercises and doing the thing you're talking about, which is sort of refining and exploring and the sort of laboratory mindset, can you talk a little bit about that process? Like I guess this is an oblique way of asking, why does this method work? What sets this method apart? How would you treat a laboratory experiment as a success or a failure? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So with just thinking about those UNC days for myself from 2011 and 2018, what would happen is, Scott would be working and Liam would be working in New York City. I'd be doing my thing down in Chapel Hill, and we continue to host workshops and meet together in New York City to then host that weekend intensive or whatever was going on. Mm-hmm. And there was this constant conversation between us about truly what went well, how could it be better? And I think that's at the spine of this work, which is unique. It's constantly evolving because of the willingness to stay open to input and feedback as it happens. So that was how we started. Every exercise we taught, we'd have an idea, we'd come in with a plan, and then, and Scott's gift is this real comprehensive way of thinking and great detail in what he brings to the work. And he's always playing these incredibly long threads with students and exercises. And where the space I've been trying to help at least is providing things more structure, helping things be a bit more accessible at a quick go. And that was our relationship. And Liam, in creating this bit of a tripod, Liam was also played an incredibly important part because Liam didn't drink Kool-Aid. He's an anti-Kool-Aid drinker.
Yeah.
And he would make sure to push back on things, not just for the sake of it, but would push back on things because he would refuse just to say, "Oh, great idea," to be nice. So he was so important in that role of pushing back on things and creating some good tension in the creation of the work. Otherwise, Scott and I would have wrecked many cars together. And that was super helpful in our dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean, collaboration really is the key, and really a kind of student-centricness to it.
Yeah.
So there's, there's the peer relationship that we all have and continue to have as we have more teachers in the fold. And then there's the teacher-student relationship. I mean, they're the only ones experiencing the work. So they're
the students.
Yeah. So the information that they have is vital to understanding not whether something is successful or not, or what that even means, because it's going to wear differently on every different individual. But really part of the training, in the sense of training the student to speak as a researcher, training the students to treat the environment they're in as a laboratory, to be incredibly curious about, training the student to understand that, life is just a series of attempts and then you die. There's nothing else going on. And then to report back on that, in a way that furthers the research. That's all, at the nucleus of what we do and how we think about things. And like JP said, I mean, the hope is that you're self-aware enough to know what you're not. Actually, even more self-aware enough to know to know what you are is what you're not. And I am not JP at all, right? He has so many genius attributes that I could never hope to even come close to. So it doesn't make sense to me not to embrace that at all, or not to invite that in. If really what you're saying is you want to stay relevant, and you want to evolve, and you want to stay connected to what is presently happening in the world, and go ahead.
No, let me bring that full circle back to. And sorry to cut you off, Scott, but it's important right there. Is that was the difference, with all respect to Margaret Loft and my experience, a lot of other great teachers that I've worked with. And I bring this up at the beginning of every new cohort that comes into the mVm Teacher Cert program, which is, I'll never forget being at Rutgers, giving Scott some feedback as a student of what was working and wasn't working for me, and then seeing an exercise right in front of my eyes evolve because Scott took it in and went, "Oh yeah, that is a better way to do that." And then it changed. And I went, "What just happened?" Like, there is no way.
This has never happened to me before.
I would have never been able to have given feedback to Peggy, or at least I didn't feel safe to do that, to give Peggy feedback on an exercise she taught. Are you kidding me? No way. Off with his head. Whereas with Scott, I was like, oh my God, like he's open. This work is open to me being an active participant and collaborator in that way. And that really was the difference in what motivated me to want to be part of it to this day.
That's very cool. I'm curious about what you're doing now. I know that you teach in the teacher certification program, as does Scott. But you are doing work with other communication companies. Does you're not teaching, well, I guess that's a question. Are you teaching mVm style stuff in these other realms, or is it more your own work, or like how does it connect or differ?
Yeah, so a little different in each situation. So for Duarte, for example, I'll go into a company and they're working on soup to nuts. They're working on a communication strategy, distilling and synthesizing a communication strategy, then building slides that are visually dynamic and appealing and congruent with their message, and then the delivery. So then I'm working on your kind of classic public speaker coaching aspect of it. And through that process, there's like a vocal section to how you work with a student in the corporate world, of which I sprinkle in mVm stuff like active breath and what have you. It's not their content, so I can't, make slides about it and teach them long exercises about it. But when I'm working with someone, obviously the way that I'm going to get them started on anything is getting them breathing to begin, and among other things. So that, and then I would say also with the corporate stuff, we end up in really deep circle talk like conversation. Circle talk being an element of mVm where, you create that equitable space where everyone has time to say what's on their mind and their hearts and their souls, and you connect in that way and start from that place of a bit more vulnerability, what have you. And in the corporate world, you would think that doesn't happen, but it does. It happens quickly. Like, they are desperate for it. So my colleagues over there will do a breakout session, and it very quickly evolves into this mini little circle talk. For example, someone will bring up the fact that, they feel like they have entered this company and their bosses or the person they report to has an assumption about who they are. And they feel like they are trapped by it and they don't know how to break free from it. So, what a circle talk moment to allow them to process that and then start to look at the behaviors and the actions that their boss is exhibiting, and then the behaviors and actions that they're exhibiting in reaction to, and then start to talk about really clear, simple, physical things they can do that is on their terms and empowering, rather than, oh, my boss says I talk too fast. Okay. Let me change that language. I think some public speaker coaches might then just give them that low-hanging fruit of, okay, let's work on slowing down.
Right.
And missing that kind of like, let's just jump to the result, fix the issues for the man, opposed to, hey, so what's your version of this look like where you feel like you're not on borrowed time? And maybe it doesn't look slower. I don't know. But what feels empowering to you? And then we create that approach together, and then use some of the Duarte's IP and, of course, all of these instincts of mine that are so Miller Voice Method trained and colored to bring to bear in those moments. So it's always there. So that's how it affects Duarte. And then, of course, in my gender affirming work at Chicago Women's Health Center, working with incredible clients that I work with there. We'll talk about, I know, some other time about that work, but it's actually similar. It's similar how in the gender affirming work, to preview a bigger conversation about this, it's amazing how much people jump into pitch modulation work as a gender affirming coach, and their client has no idea how to breathe yet. So, you want to sound a different way than how you sound. So let's start working on your pitch modulation.
Right.
And it misses, in my opinion, so many steps to a holistic approach at health and power for what they're after. So please.
What do you think offering that person awareness of breath, understanding of breath, access to breath, what do you think that offers them that this sort of results model doesn't? And Scott, I'd be curious what your thoughts are on that too.
Yeah, when I'm fundamentally evolving or trying to learn something from a place of fixing, well, if I inherently think there's something wrong, problematic, or broken in me, I would imagine that's a pretty tight place in which to exist.
Yeah.
So if I am existing from that place and behaving from that place, and I'm a little tight in the way that I breathe and speak and behave, well, then if I go about putting on a new exercise or set of behaviors of which to make a shift or a pivot, well, those are going to be tight as well, because I'm still just putting a mask on a mask. Oh gosh, I need to fix something. Something's wrong about me. Here, I'm going to put on this mask to survive. And then I'm going to take in this new method or approach to fix that thing. I'm going to grab it with some tension to make sure it happens, because I really want to muscle that thing to be my new truth, and put it on top of that other mask. So now I've got this double layered protection in front of me, and none of it looks genuine or authentic at the end of the day, ironically, because that's exactly what the person's usually after. So that's where the active breath offers a way to go about building in these new behaviors and actions, but in a way that's connected with self, that's inherently vulnerable, that's easeful, and compassionate for your own process. Like, think about it. Every time I allow myself to breathe through a process, it's to release a little control. Therefore, give myself a little compassion to say, hey, whatever happens, you're okay. It's going to be okay. You can let go. Go about this thing with more breath. So that's how I like to build with really all my clients, for that matter.
And it's fascinating how that does not equate to capitulation or being a doormat. You know, it doesn't block you from contributing, but it can facilitate contribution in, like you said, a more authentic, truthful, less controlled kind of way.
Yeah, so the floor mat thing. So tell me more about that. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, I have no authority in this area specifically, but what it makes me think of though is change. Like, why does anyone? I mean, that's what piques my curiosity usually around when someone says, I want to change something or fix something, or, you know, around this idea that status quo is not sufficient. Because, you know, change is very hard, you know. So getting at the underlying motivation of why change wants to happen, I think it's really interesting, but I think it's really pivotal, because it may not be the actual, it may not present in the same way that one thinks it will present or is presenting. I think if we're not clear, if I'm not clear on why I want to change, if the person I'm going to help to make that change is not clear on why I want to change, then I think it is kind of putting a mask on a mask, or you know, eventually that can happen. So that's, you know, that's much like the example that JP brought up about, you know, coming up with a adaptation or alteration to an exercise in the moment. If one can understand what is what's desired in the change, why is change being asked for, then I think a lot of the fear and a lot of the trepidation around losing status quo, which, by the way, we're always losing status quo every second of the day because we're constantly changing as humans, biologically. So, but losing that fear, or at least loosening it up a bit, can start to happen.
Yeah. We have a lot wrapped up in the status quo, generally, as members of a society, right?
Yeah.
Identity is wrapped up in that. Power, you know, safety. A lot of those things are wrapped up in predictability.
Yeah, very helpful things, actually, right?
Yeah,
to survive.
Friends, this has been an absolutely delightful conversation. JP, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks, y'all. Really great.
Is there anything that you have coming up that you'd like to plug? We'd like to offer folks an opportunity. Do you have a course you're teaching or anything that you want to advertise?
There'll be a new series of gender affirming courses at the Chicago Women's Health Center that I will host in April. That's coming up and in the works. And other than that, just in the current, you know, couple classes at Miller Voice Method doing the teacher cert work and working with them, which has been incredible. And I just moved to a new house. So if anybody wants to come over here, I'm on campus. I'm putting together a new Murphy bed today. So just stop on by. Glad to see you.
Who's the Murphy bed for? Who's the Murphy bed for?
Who do you think it's for? It's for you. When you come come on, are you kidding me? When you and Viola come, where are you going to sleep? Where are you going to sleep? So I'm putting this bed together for you in my office.
I've always wanted to sleep in a Murphy bed.
Yeah. Oh yeah, baby. It's going to be amazing.
They can be pretty okay. I was just in artist housing in Berkeley, California for a month and a half, and they had Murphy beds in their place, and we were all dreading that a little bit and making jokes about it, but they were actually really comfortable.
And there you have it. Thank you, Kyle, for your support.
Well, we look forward to your reviews of the Murphy bed once it's all up and running.
He is pretty tall. We'll see how it goes.
Speaking of Teacher Cert, we do have a level 1 starting up again in the spring, I believe. Is that correct, Scott?
Yes, we actually have a sneak peek coming up soon. I'm not sure when this podcast will air, so I will not give that date. I'm learning. I believe that it will air. We have one tonight, but obviously that's too late, folks. It'll be in the past by now. But there is one Saturday, February 7th at 12:15 p.m. Eastern. Perfect.
I have a feeling this will be out before then, and if it's not, then I apologize. We're all learning this together.
Yeah. And we have
the other thing that we
have a class forming.
No, you go ahead.
No. We have a class. It's gonna happen. We have a sufficient amount to have a class, so it's happening.
Fabulous.
Yes.
So if you would like to join that class or find out a little bit more about what teacher certification looks like, you can visit millervoicemethod.com and click on teacher certification. You can also go to that website and click on classes to find out more information about the mVm Gym, which is a twice weekly 1-hour class live on Zoom with a certified mVm teacher. They are designed to be available to folks of all levels, and it's just sort of a somatic practice, trying out a couple of mVm exercises and getting a little feedback in real time from a teacher. So you can get a little taste of the work that way. We will be running Wednesday nights at 7:30 p.m. Eastern and Saturdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. And you can get single drop-in admission for those classes or buy a whole month or 2-month pack. So millervoicemethod.com, check out classes, check out teacher certification, and we will be back in a couple weeks with another episode of Active Breath. I do not know who our guest will be, but so far, all of these conversations with our guests have been pretty wide-ranging. I was not expecting we'd end up at the Blue Man Group today, so that was pretty thrilling. Thank you so much for that, JP. It's so great to have a chat with you and get a sense of what you're doing and what you find so useful about this work.
My pleasure, my friend. Thank you all. Real pleasure.
Thanks, Scott. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Okay.
All right. Thanks, JP. Thanks, Kyle.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.